All right, where are we going next? Let's talk about the H-1B thing specifically. We still have my boy Ian Miles Chung to talk about, Vivek to talk about, Elon to talk about. Let's go to H-1Bs right now, though. Did a space the other day, but only like 10 people watched. If you're one of the 10 that watched, this might be slightly repetitive. Now, I don't have at my access what I wrote, but if you go to my X, you can see my highlighted or my pinned post, and you'll see a lot of this. So let's just go from memory, sort of the things I wanted to say. Scattershot H-1B. Where do I want to start with this? The problem basically comes down to, in fact, let's go with what Vivek said. Let's start with Vivek. For those that missed it, Vivek put a post out, and it basically was critical of American culture. And he says things that are just abjectly stupid. He's making a point that there's a large kernel of truth in what he's saying. The problem is the specifics in which he's saying are either false or they're detrimental to his own point, etc. So he's like, there's a problem with American culture. And then he starts saying, like, our schools celebrate the football player and not the math nerd, not the chess team. And kids go to sleepovers. Ultra Void for $5 says, didn't we import those scientists that gave us MK Ultra? Maybe that's okay because they gave us Operation Paperclip too. And it's like, well, you're right. There is a problem with culture in our education system and with our culture overwhelmingly. But is the culture that we're celebrating like the jock? In some senses, yes. But in many cases, no. In fact, in many cases, we're celebrating victims now. We're celebrating the nerds. Jocks are considered bullies and meatheads, and they're the oppressors. Not all the time, but that's largely what's going on. We criticize people our cultures criticize people that engage in physical fitness. They call it far right. So it's Vivek. The problem is kids going to sleepovers. I think one of the problems is kids don't even have real life friends much anymore and don't have a social life. And the greatest criticism I have of specifically what Vivek's saying is, I think that it's giving some insight into his character that shows that he thinks the ultimate value of a person is what they're achieving economically or what they're achieving through their work or their career. I disagree. I think that reeks of secularism and materialism. There's nothing wrong with people pursuing a career and getting into it. But if I had to say, what is the problems with our culture? What have we gotten away from? I would say it's things like family identity. There are a lot of people that got away from that are doing all kinds of bullshit that are like socialists that just want to sit at home and be victims. But there's also a lot of people that say, I don't need a family. I don't need to find someone I love and have a family with them because I'll just work 90 hours a week, 100 hours a week. I don't have time for a family. Now, do we need people like that in society? Of course. People like that can help out in society. But if we're talking about problems with our culture, but nonetheless, I'm not going to shit on Vivek too much because he's basically saying something that many people I've heard on the right, myself included, say all the time. We have significant problems in our education system and our culture. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And so therefore, yeah, I'm going to steel man Vivek's position, but I think this is fair. We need to fix those things. But in the meantime, because our education system particularly has been so destroyed, there are these jobs in places that are very high level, like engineering, that we're not churning out enough people from our education system that are getting into those fields. And so in the short term, to remain competitive in the world, we need to bring in the best and the brightest around the world to fill those slots. That's basically Vivek's argument, and it's not an indefensible position. He's right about the cultural parts, and he may very well be right when it comes to the best and brightest. He probably is. Here's the problem. The problem is that both the tone and the timing of what Vivek said are horrible. That doesn't mean what he specifically said is bad, and I, who understand this, I don't have a problem. I'm not super pissed at Vivek, but I understand why other people are. That's what I'm saying. Because the problem with this entire, with Elon's position and Vivek's position, and apparently Trump's position is this. People are tired of feeling like they are citizens of this country, and the government of this country does not give a fuck about them. They care about everything else except the people of this country. They care about Ukraine. They care about Syria. They care about importing workers from India or from Europe. They care about climate change. But they don't give a shit about the people of this country. Hawaii goes up in fires. Sorry, not much we could do. Hurricane hits Helene. Mass immigration hurting community after community for decades. Our immigration system has been so broken for so long, since at least going back to the days of Reagan. We were told, listen, there's all these people that came in that were told they would get green cards, and they didn't. And they're mostly good people. And so these people that have been here for 10, 20 years, we should give them green cards. And then we're going to secure the border. We'll stop this shit. And Reagan said, okay. And then what happened? Well, as soon as that deal was in place, bam, they just opened the floodgates. More and more and more and more and more and more. And every year we're told, this is the year we'll get around to dealing with it. And nothing happens. And then we're told it's not a problem, there's no crisis. And then, well, yeah, okay, it's happening, but it's a good thing. Republicans wouldn't touch this issue. Thanks so much, Aramaic. For $5 says, Doge's purpose is to cut waste. Turns out Elon and Vivek believe the waste is the American worker. I don't necessarily think that's what they're saying, but I get it. There are criticisms. So that's the environment. Finally, we get this guy who's like, hey, in 2016, the border, we're going to do something about this. Immigration's out of control. It's massively popular. Then he runs on it again. Massively popular. Mass deportations are massively popular. Securing the border, massively popular. He wins. The Republicans win the popular vote. And then what are we immediately talking about? Well, there's a problem with American culture and we need to bring in better workers from overseas. How do you think people are going to take that? Even if you're right, that's how you're going to sell this to the people that just voted for, we're tired of getting fucked over by all these immigration laws and policies that end up fucking us over in the end? And let me be clear, although this is right now limited to an H-1B conversation, go back to the call-in I had last week, and then there was one about 2 weeks ago from the same guy named Raceland. He may even be in the chat right here. And he wants to talk about, well, what are we going to do when we start deporting people and it turns out that they worked at the chicken farm or they worked at the fruit farm and now we need people, so we deport them but then we bring them right back. How many people we're going to bring back? What are we going to do with that process? And I say, fuck you, I don't want to talk about this. Let's secure the border. Then we can have a conversation about this stuff later, because this is always the exact conversation that's used to never secure the border in the first place. So let's do that. We'll take care of that and then we'll deal with those other problems. How about that? Well, that's what's coming down the pipe next. Oh, well, we got rid of all these other people, so now, yeah, we're just talking about 85,000 H-1Bs, but now we need to increase the amount of visas for all these other positions as well. That's the problem. The problem is the tone and the timing of it. This is how they should have approached it. Yeah, the people that are complaining about these H-1Bs are exactly right. The tech companies that are claiming that there aren't jobs have massively supported the political and cultural movements that have led to the destruction of our education system. They have endorsed, used their platforms to put out messaging to censor people that were critical of the politician and the cultural movement that was destroying these universities. And now, all of a sudden, they're like, oh, but we're on board with Trump. Keep giving us those H-1Bs. We need those people. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. First things first, DEI must go. The people that have exploited it and have gone after people and refused to hire them because of their race need to be held civilly and criminally accountable. No government money should go anywhere where there is DEI that is saying that you can't hire domestic Americans. Every policy in this country should be first and foremost prioritizing that it benefits the American citizen first and foremost. If we find out any policy is being used to discriminate against the American citizens by companies, there will be harsh penalties, not just to the company and their shareholders, but by the people in charge of making those decisions, up to and including criminal penalties. This is unacceptable. We understand why the American people are furious at the exploitation, not just of illegal immigration, but also our legal immigration system. And we will not stop until these concerns are met. Of course, there is room to bring in the best and the brightest. People like Elon that have done such a great job in helping give us free speech on platforms like X did take advantage of the H-1B system in the correct way. And there are many other that do so. But the first priority needs to be making sure that these systems can no longer be exploited and punishing those that have. You see? How hard was that? Instead of, well, there's a problem with your culture and you're racist if you disagree. Or like Elon said, I'll go to war over this fuck face, or fuck yourself in the face. Great. Good tone there. Now, I can handle it. I don't give a shit. For me, whatever. Do I still think on net Elon and Vivek are very good? Of course. Did I ever think that they were perfect altruistic people? No. No one is. So why would I think they would be? That's the problem with what they said. That's why people are outraged. Yeah, sorry, we know that you were lied to over and over and over again about, trust us, this immigration policy that we're putting, it won't be exploited. It won't. This is it. It's just these couple limited people, and then it gets massively exploited, and it's a huge problem. Then 20 years later, we're like, yeah, that was bad, but trust us this time. That won't happen again. This time that won't happen. And if you disagree with us, you're racist, you're a sack of shit, you're DEI. That's what's going on. Now, does this mean that there aren't people that are exploiting the situation from saying, I hate people of Indian descent, they're all despicable, blah, 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 blah? Yeah, those people fucking suck. However, are there racists on the other side like that Sindarth guy? Yeah, it seems to be the case that hate white people. Does that mean that if you're critical of H-1B, you're a racist? No. What if you're talking about wanting jobs for white people? Does that make you racist? No. You should be allowed to stick up for the issues of white people and white people as a race to your heart's content. Why is it that it's only white people that can't advocate for their own race? Why is that? Black people can. People of Indian descent can. Hispanics can. But not whites. That's racist. Fuck that. Now, is that what I do? No, not really. We're all tribal. My group that I have an affinity for is rural Americans. Now, where I live, that's predominantly white people. There's also black people. There's people of Indian descent. Hispanic people, straight people, gay people, Muslims, Christians, atheists. There's all sorts of groups that fit within that category of rural Americans, but that's the issues I tend to focus on. Does that make me a bigot? No. We all have our group affinities, and you're just lying. Now, you shouldn't hate people for not being part of that group or be bigoted against them for not. But you're lying if you say that you're not advocating for a group preference. Most people are. You can also try to look at issues outside of your group preferences and make decisions you think are best for all groups. That's certainly possible. Outside of rural people, I advocate for American citizens. My government should be helping the needs of American citizens, not people in the world. No. Does that mean we should intentionally harm people around the world to benefit American citizens? No. But the priority of our government should be the people of this country. So I don't blame someone who's like, hey, Sarah Carter, I saw saying. I like Sarah Carter's reporting. She says, my parents came on H-1Bs, and I'll be damned, personal attack, the people that are criticizing. She has every right to feel that way. Just like a person who's white, it says, my kid got a 4.0 in school and couldn't get into Ivy League school because they're white, and then got into a lesser school but still was top of their class and studied to be an engineer and got turned down at all these jobs and now is working in a completely unrelated field. Fuck H-1Bs. Don't they have the right to say that as well? I understand when you're involved and you feel that it personally affects you, you get heated. Do I understand why Elon Musk, who is a beneficiary of an H-1B visa himself, would be a strong advocate for H-1B visas? Sure. May it have something to do with perhaps it helps out fill his labor pool out in some of his companies? Probably. But the idea that we have to pretend, oh, it's just totally bigoted for people that are American citizens, that's DEI for white people. No, it's not DEI for white people. Saying you shouldn't discriminate against white people, and then because you have said, well, now we need to give special visas for foreigners because they're willing to do jobs that white people can't because we've discriminated against them. That's number one. Number two, I know probably personally 4 or 5 people around my area of Indian descent, and they're all terrific. I hear all these commentaries about how terrible, and it's not the norm, but I have seen the racism that people are talking about or other criticisms. I haven't seen it anecdotally. Now, I don't work in the tech sector. Maybe it's true. I've heard stories say, I work in the tech sector, and all of a sudden you bring Indians in at your company on H-1Bs, and then they end up getting green cards, and then they only hire other Indians. Maybe that's all true. I don't know. I'm telling you right now, though, the people I've met that I know that are legally here, that are of Indian descent, are terrific people. That is bullshit anecdotal. That in no way, shape, or form makes any declaration about what policy should be. I'm just telling you that's my experience. That's number 2. I had like 3 or 4 points. What was it? Next, I have no problem taking in the best and the brightest. None. I think that that's absolutely something that we should do. I believe that we should have a merit-based immigration system. We should. And I have no problem if we could bring someone in that would benefit the people of this country substantially of bringing that person in. But benefiting's not just about the economy or our technology. I talked to a person on that Spaces 2 days ago who is from Greece, who's here on an H-1B visa. And I'm just talking to him for 40 minutes on, a space. I don't know this person from Adam, but from what he's saying, if he's being truthful, he sounds like he would be someone that America would love to have. Loves the country, loves what the country is founded on, the Bill of Rights, free speech, the Second Amendment, individualism. Seems to be doing a job that, and granted, I'm just taking his word for it, but let's assume it's truthful, that is of incredible benefit to his employer and to the country. It was a job that there was no American applying for whatever reason. Okay. And yet, we have to admit, or we have to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be American? If the country exists for the benefit of Americans, what does it mean to be American? Elon Musk, using this sports metaphor, absolutely gives what I think is a terrible look into what perhaps his worldview is. It sounds to me that he thinks America is just the place where I had the best economic opportunity. That's what it sounds like. It's the best corporation. It's the Yankees. I want to play for the shitty-ass Pittsburgh Pirates when I can play for the Yankees. That's what America is. It's the Yankees. And India's, fucking, I don't know, the Orioles. I don't know, some other team. He's like, like you bring in the best player from around the world to make your team the best. I would say a more apt analogy would be more akin to a family. I have 2 brothers. So let's say once my parents pass, I am the oldest brother. So I have 2 brothers and a sister. So we're sitting down and we want to make the Noerr family as strong as possible. And I say to my 2 brothers and a sister, you guys aren't doing the greatest. You're not rocket scientists. You're not professional athletes. You're not making millions of dollars. So I'm actually going to replace you. Well, we're going to bring people in to take your place. So here's 2 other guys and another woman, and they all make way more money. So you're out. Wow, look how much greater the Noerr family is now. We're great. And then as soon as those people get in, they say, yeah, actually, Rob, about that, turns out you're a fat fucking slob that barely makes any money. You're out, buddy. So now we got 4 new unrelated people that are the Noerr family, but they're doing great. The Noerr family's doing fantastic. Is that what the country is? Is that it? What are American values? Well, no, they have to assimilate, Rob. They have to have somewhat of your values. According to who? Because there's an awful lot of actual Americans that are citizens here that don't share values that I think are very American. For example, I think individualism is a strong American family, or more aptly, support of the family unit. There's a lot of Americans that don't feel that way. So we're only going to import people that are pro-Second Amendment, pro-First Amendment, pro-privacy? Is that what you're saying? That's what it means to be American? You think that's how the system's going to come down? By the way, just curious to those new right-wingers, new MAGA people in the tech sector that are saying, actually, it's pro-American, blah, blah, blah. Just curious. I wonder, of the people that receive H-1B visas that end up getting green cards, what percentage of them do you think end up voting Republican? If overwhelmingly they vote Democrat and say, actually, we want to vote for the party that wants to take away your Second Amendment, wants to have the government have czars on disinformation to censor speech that we don't like. Is that pro-American? Are those people now American? Just because we said, well, you got a green card now? Even if they are we to pretend that the person, and I've said this, but I've had to reconsider, is that person, the moment they become an American citizen, as much of an American citizen as someone who's been here for 10 generations? Now, legally they are. I don't see how you could get around that. But are we to pretend their connection to the country is the same as someone who's been here for 200 years? If I go to China, should I be able to expect to be given citizenship and be just as Chinese as people who's been there for 10, 20 generations? Is there any other country in the world where that would be the case? If that's the case, well, then let's say that all of a sudden we get new technology, whatever, and we could double the size of the United States. But it turns out there aren't good employees in the United States to run this new AI technology, whatever. And so we import 30 million people from other countries. And all of those countries, those people that we bring in all have values massively different to what the Founding Fathers thought. So what? It doesn't matter. They're the new Americans? Is that how it goes? What exactly makes us American then? What's the defining? And you might say, well, that's ridiculous. It wouldn't matter. Well, we have to have some sort of philosophical underpinnings for our argument here. The argument can't be, as long as you're making us money, you could come in. That's how you get situations like we see in Canada, where people are massively regretting how many immigrants they left in. Guess which country they're complaining about predominantly? India. If we bring in 5 million people to work in the tech sector from Asian countries, and they all happen to move into, say, Virginia, and then massively change the state government of Virginia, do we just say tough shit? Oh, well. There has to be more to it than that. Black Jaden, thank you so much for the subscription. Supporting the American dream is a necessity. Now, I'm not an ethno-nationalist. I don't think this country is just for white people. Nor am I saying that we should never bring immigrants in. I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying the way the argument's being sold, oh, well, it's just the best and brightest, and that's all that matters. I don't think that's all that matters. I don't. Now, in the grand scheme of things, if H-1B is kept at $85,000 a year with a 3 to 6 year term on it, so that roughly means 600,000 people in this country working jobs on an H-1B. Does that massively, irreparably change the culture of our country? No. And let's say you could get out all the fraud and you could prove every single one of those workers are doing fantastic. They're helping us in the global economy. They're helping the local communities, etc. That's fine. But the problem is that's not how it's done. We could already see with the current H-1B system how it's being exploited. But so many people have treated people that are skeptical, with good reason, as just being racist or stupid. And that's not the case. I might not be as smart as Elon. I might not ever have a company like him. My name will not be in the history books as long as Elon Musk's is. He'll be remembered after his death. I won't. That's okay. But that doesn't mean that I'm not bringing up valid criticisms. That doesn't mean people from my way of life should just be told, shut up, let the genius talk. You don't know what you're talking about. Isn't that sort of what we were told during the pandemic? Isn't that what we're told with foreign policy? Isn't that what we're told with climate change? Isn't that what we were told with immigration for years and years? Turns out, many times, the average country bumpkin who's uneducated tended to be more correct than many of the so-called experts. So I don't find it persuasive. And I actually think subtly Elon and Vivek started to change their tone and to change, oh, of course there's H-1B abuse. Yes, we need to deal with it. We'll see what happens policy-wise. But this idea of like, well, we must all not fight. We all just have to agree with everything Trump says and everything Elon says. Fuck all that. Not this guy. That shit ain't happening. Yeah, I am unaware. Trump says Elon says he just wants to hire engineers. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the field. I don't even have anecdotal evidence. I just see what other people are saying. There's an awful lot of people saying that a lot of these firms are laying off engineers, or they're forcing engineers to train replacements that are cheaper from foreign countries and then laying them off. Maybe that's all a lie. Other people say it is. I don't know. But it's certainly a conversation worth happening. And I'm sorry, I'm not just going to take at face value the very people that told me there wasn't a problem with illegal immigration, and then, okay, there's a lot coming in, but they're good, and we have to keep them because they benefit the economy, that are then saying, but we have to accept all these H-1s because they're good for the economy, and tell me that I'm not allowed to question it. Sorry. So, I think that you should be allowed to have a robust argument with someone, and that doesn't mean you fucking hate them or that you want them kicked out of the party or kicked out of the country or this, that, and the other. I have no problem saying I have a problem with the way that Elon and Vivek said things. I have a problem that it seems as if their worldview is more akin to globalism than nationalism. But that doesn't mean that I'm willing to say, therefore I hate them and blah, blah. That's not what I'm saying. gotta have a little thick skin if you're talking about politics. So I don't mind. Now, are there people that have just been racist? Sure. Okay, whatever. And yeah, we should call them out, of course, when we see it. But that's not what the majority of this is.